Hello and welcome to New Earth Podcast. I am your host, Sarah Chave, and today I'm delighted to have with me my guest, Paul Le Clere, who is a 5D liberator, change maker, and intuitive, intuitive life coach. So welcome, Paul. Delighted to have you.
Thanks very much, Sarah. Lovely to be here and lovely to be able to talk to your people as well.
Yeah, we'd love to start by just having you share a little bit about yourself and your story and background and how you came to be doing the work that you're doing.
Yeah, cool. Well, I mean, I guess right from an early age, sort of teenager and things, I had an interest in telepathy and paranormal and all sorts of interesting things back then. And I started going to psychic and mystic fairs and things and having readings and so on, just to confirm various choice points at different stages. And I wouldn't go regularly, but when I did go, it always the same thing afterwards. At the end, the reader would say, oh, you could be sitting where I am and you've got all these gifts and so on, and connections with the Great White Brotherhood. And of course, we didn't have internet back then. And, and then like, yeah, okay, but there was bikes and cars and girls and things to kind of pursue. And I didn't really kind of follow that, a lot. And then over the years, that's built up and become more aware with insights, and certainly being a trainer and a coach and a business change consultant for many years. I started to feel things in groups that I was working with and feel things in my client interactions. And then ask questions, and people would just go into kind of aha territory. And it was just a very natural evolution of these things coming out. And then I guess at the beginning of lockdown, I got a big shove to stop doing the corporate sort of work that I was doing and move into completely the evolutionary life coaching, the spiritual development and soul connection, and assisting people to connect with really this idea of who they really are, who they're becoming. And that has just, so I guess the last 10, 15 years with a big acceleration spurt over the last 3 or 4 years, realizing why a lot of things have happened before and why you're doing what you're doing now to assist with whatever these changes are for where people think they're going through. So that would probably be a short version.
Amazing. And you mentioned, that kind of through lockdown there was a shift. I'm just wondering if there was an awakening moment or anything that happened for you there that kind of spurred you into change.
Well, it's funny you say that, because the first week of lockdown, I was going, this doesn't feel right at all. What is going on here? And my team just gave me a bit of a nudge and said, go on your computer and go and look up the top 10 psychological fears that men and women have. And this wasn't, and they said, don't ignore arachnophobia and vertigo and all these things, but the psychological fears. And I kind of did about 15 minutes desk research, 3 different sites, combined them together, and I got a top 10 list of fears. And I went, okay, well, what's that? And they just watch what's going on. And so I didn't have a TV at the time, I'd taken a TV away, but I started to see what I was looking at, snippets of media posting, things that politicians were saying, statements from, NHS and so on. And I could then correlate what fear it was being designed to activate in the minds and the hearts of the people that were obviously taking that as read or following that as the institution or the government guidelines. And I just saw through it straight away, and I was just able to decode that immediately and go, wow, they're trying to activate that deep fear or that deepest fear. So whether it's, ridicule or shame or, fear of death or fear of getting ill or fear of being incapacitated. And that was a big nudge at the beginning of lockdown, and then sort of taking out everybody into their little isolation modes to say, this is what's really going on. There's much bigger agenda running than is being presented.
That's really interesting, because I know that part of the work that you've been drawn to do is to look at that shift from fear into love, and how I'd be really interested to hear about how you're working with that and how that related to that initial kind of list that you had, and your observations, and how you can support people to make that shift.
Yeah. Well, I did get really then pushed towards digital programs and doing online training and creating videos, which I hadn't done for some years. So I started doing podcasts, little kind of vlogs rather than podcasts, commentaries on what was happening and gateways through for people to see perhaps a different view from what was being presented. And I started to record the superhero called You kind of mini series, which was all about identifying a soul superpower that he had inside you. And each little kind of 5-minute episode was talking about that in practical terms and how you could activate and nurture that part of you. And there was also assisting people to connect with those soul superpowers in a bit more of a learning experience way. And then certain things changed and my personal situation changed, separation and things. And I started to get really into the divine connections much more. And this was where the Great White Brotherhood and Ascended Masters connections really came on strong. And I was working in a community, a group with Liana, from a lady in America from powerpassionfreedom.com, and she had a group, and I was kind of getting up at 12 o'clock at night twice a week to join those discussions. And it was all about connecting with the I am presence, really comprehending the simplicity and the true power of that, and then being able to, once we've connected with it, to create with that power and state and feeling within you. And so I developed this decrees process from a simple template starting position that I got from that group, and then started to develop my own daily decrees and declarations, if you like, which initially I was doing 3 times a day. And then it expanded as I learned more and got more insights. I built that up. And that process I've been doing now, I think for over 12 months, I was doing it 3 times a day, which really brought things in. What we pay attention to and focus on, we create. And then it became quite unwieldy because I've got like about 8 or 10 pages of stuff, and I kind of thinned it down. And so that has been a very big, powerful shift. And that's one of the things I do on a Thursday evening is a group decree process. I think you may.
Yeah, I came along and I loved it actually. I want to make some time to come along again, and it would be fabulous to put the details of that underneath the video, and to give me a link for that, so that we
sure.
can, people can share that and go along to that and benefit from that. I'd just like to pick up on this idea of, because I think part of the thing that has happened is that with all the fear, it's like handing over, we're disempowered. It's like handing over the authority. And I love what you said about, finding these different aspects, these superpowers within ourselves, because we don't know, we can't necessarily find these things outside of ourselves. When we break them down, they have to be found inside. And I think lockdown was a real opportunity. I mean, there was that kind of, opportunity to kind of watch Netflix for forever, or to go inside and to kind of really look at these and examine these things. So I'm just really interested for you to talk a little bit about that journey from being disempowered and having the authority outside ourselves to moving into sovereignty, which is the process I believe that you're working with and encouraging.
Yeah, I certainly talk about liberation. I found out something on the journey in the last 3-4 years about sovereignty, and I was all over that to begin with. And then I found out that sove, the word sove, means to sleep, and so sovereign means to reign or to rule over the sleeping. And I kind of, when you took that as the kind of the literal translation of the words, I was kind of going, I'm not really ruling over the sleeping. I want to empower and assist people to empower themselves so they're not sleeping anymore. So I I had to change all my literature in the. I couldn't.
It's interesting, isn't
Personally, I
it?
couldn't use that word anymore.
It's interesting because someone told me that collaboration is actually a Nazi word, because I use the word collaboration, moving from competition into collaboration. And then someone told me it's actually it's got some Nazi kind of background. So I'm sort of looking at ways to change those as well, because it's, you know, because everything's energy. We don't want those kind of associations. So thank you for
Yeah,
sharing.
well, there's two ways of looking at it, because I mean, it's like whenever you say "bless you" to somebody, it's actually they've changed one letter. It was bliss, so they're saying "bless you" is "be less." So of course, but so the actual words are one thing, but that can actually be a very small percentage of the energy you're transferring. So if you're saying "bless you" with all your heart,
Yes.
and that energy kind of overcomes the limitation of the actual wording. And I suppose in sovereign terms, you know, talking about regaining sovereignty, then if you have a pure, you know, energy to it, then, you know, you can reclaim that rather than be worried or fearful about, you know, using it. I guess, you know, there's a balance here, what you feel comfortable with. But definitely there's a process of being much clearer about the words that you use that come out of your mouth, because your spoken word is in effect creating a divine contract with anyone or anything around you, from the universe or into the universe from whatever you say. And there is a discipline and a discernment thing that is required for us to choose our words very carefully, so that we're totally congruent and behind 100% what we say. And in particular, the "I am" sort of statements are very important to recognize, because whenever you say the "I am" statements, you'll know this already, and a lot of your people will know this. You know, you say, "Oh, I'm crap at languages" or something. I used to say that to myself at school. I'm actually bringing in that whole power of
Well, that's the
creation
thing. That's the
to make
thing.
that a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah, it's very interesting. I've been thinking about this a lot lately, you know, the power of my voice, intention, also, you know, really working with that co-creation, you know, that idea of, you know, working with my higher self or divine to really, you know, be empowered in that way. But also it's an interesting process, because in one ways it's empowering, but in another ways it's very much surrendering. You know, it's surrendering the ego, isn't it? It's got that two sides to it, which is very interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. And going back to your point about fear versus love, you know, you can't be in those two things simultaneously. These are the two derivatives of our core emotional states. Everything else is a derivative of either fear or love. And it's a bit like, if we choose to be in fear and we choose to respond, react, or go into fear, it's like we say to our divine team and our spiritual team, "Okay, you know, hasta la vista, I don't need you anymore. I'm choosing to go in here." And of
Yeah.
course, if this is a free will zone, they just go, "Okay, then," because, you know, you have your free will. So we have to, you know, we don't have to, but it's great when you start to see your choices, even your emotional reactions, as a conscious choice you can make, rather than the playground stuff where, you know, somebody says something to you and you run to the teacher and go, Miss, Johnny said this to me and made me feel horrible, and you know, and actually, you know, I'm using that as a silly example, but that is how some adults are still wired in terms of their emotional reactions. They think, "Oh, this is coming in, you made me feel something," when actually, when we take 100% responsibility for ourselves, we're in a different world, because we go, "Oh, that's very interesting. How would I choose to react to this stimulus right now, or this kind of experience?" And then we get to questions like, what would love do next,
It's
rather
really an
than.
interesting conversation. It's something I've actually been working on personally, you know, this standing in my truth. And sometimes that is very difficult, you know, because when we really, you know, hold our position, you know, we can attract a lot of negativity, you know, and I have a background as a people pleaser. So I've actually
Me
found that
too.
really challenging. And I'm certainly working through personally all that, you know, being the observer in relation to negativity, I've personally found that very, you know, holding that position of love, I found that really hard not to get caught in the story, you know. So I'm listening very carefully personally at this moment as
Yeah.
well. So any tips you have in kind of remaining the observer, not getting locked in the story, even if we're triggered, because sometimes, you know, what I'm finding is that I'm using the triggers as a way of looking at my shadow and doing the inner work to help to clear it, you know, because I think with the current energies that are happening at the moment, a lot of our shadow side is coming to the surface to be healed. So it's a huge opportunity if we do get triggered. It's like, okay, I'm triggered right now. So I'm just interested to hear your take on how to navigate all of this.
Well, this is, I mean, great, and I as a recovering people pleaser, I relate strongly to this, and I think this is paradigm shifting times. So we've got one paradigm where, you know, on one side we can be saying, oh, why is this happening to me? You know, why is this? You know, what's, you know, not this again? You know, and the other side of that coin, and the other choice we have is to say, why is this happening for me?
Yes, beautiful.
So once we actually start to realize that the universe is a benevolent place and that things are happening to show you things, it may be you're only getting into situations for you to see finally the thing that you've never been able to pick up on or see within yourself previously, and then be able to use the strength of that knowing to summon some new resources to respond differently. And this is where we have an opportunity to stop, take a breath, especially when we find we're triggered and we're going down a negative spiral of anger or, you know, upset or, you know, unworthiness, dissatisfaction, these old kind of, you know, these old family favorites. And especially if we're triggered by someone close to us in our circle, you know, and we go, hang on a minute, you know, what's this showing me that I haven't seen before? You know, what if this was happening for me and not to me? And how would that change my reaction now? And what is it inside of myself that's been missing all this time that I can now choose to connect with and give myself that resource to be able to do something different? And that might be just walk away. That might be not responding or getting baited into an argument.
Yeah.
That might be going and finding some time in nature, or just saying, I'm just not doing that anymore. You know,
Yes.
talk to the hand kind of thing. You know,
Yeah.
so whatever it is in these situations, we get a stop, pause, breathe. And of course, the ultimate question that can bring us back into the love state is, what would love do
I
next?
love
How would
that.
love respond?
Yeah.
Because that has the potential to bring us out of any fear-based state.
That's beautiful, Paul. Thank you so much for sharing all your wisdom around that. Um,
Well, this is
I,
hard one. That I would say, this is, you know, this is not, oh yeah, Paul's got it all down. You know, this
well,
is all like, you
oh,
know.
well, that's it. We're all learning together. And that's why I wanted to be honest about my own experience, because at the end of the day, you know, we're all learning together and we're all being triggered, and it's tough right now. You know, it's like there's, you know, there's lots of energies that are happening. I don't know if you want to talk a little bit, because we've been through the equinox just, which was the reset point, and I know lots of people personally coming up to the equinox was really hard, and I've been feeling much better since the equinox. But I have heard of clients who have found it very difficult since the equinox. So it just seems to be quite a challenging time. And I think in the long run, it's an incredible shift, because I think it was March 23, we moved into the age of Aquarius. We're going to dip out of it again for a little while, but pretty much there until 2044 now. So it's the start of a new era, and it's so exciting and so incredible. You know, the shift that we're going through as a collective. I'd love to hear your thoughts on it, Paul.
Wow, well, it's the opportunities here are immense for taking major leaps forward. But boy, there's a big shakedown happening, and we are getting to see things that we might have brushed under the carpet, or, you know, we thought we'd dealt with, but there's another component, you know, that needs to be looked at. Some of the people I'm talking to and seeing there, a lady just the other day, a parent at school, she's pretty aware of what's going on, but I think a few days ago when we had that big X-class flare,
Yeah.
she had that evening 2 hours of thinking she was having a heart attack, body shakes, sweats. And, fortunately, her husband was quite aware and was able to just remind her to breathe and bring in the light and so on. He did a remarkable job. But, she went into a fear reaction about that, initially, because it just took her completely by surprise. And, that's somebody that's done quite a bit of, inner work and
Yes.
spiritual work and so on. So I think we are all having the revelations process, rolled out for each of us in different ways. And of course, that depends on what work we've done, what we're consciously aware of, what we're still not consciously aware of. And this is bringing our awareness and our comprehension into a whole different level. And this is shaking it out and shaking
It
things
really
through.
is. It really
I
is.
mean, literally, she was shaking for the best part of 2 hours, which actually is a fantastic way of dealing with some of these things when they come out.
It's
With
really interesting you should use the word shaking, because I know lots of people have been having very physical symptoms, but I had one client who, um, she has a lot of Pluto in her chart, and it's Pluto that is doing the big moves at the moment. And Pluto's moved out of Capricorn, which is top-down structures, into Aquarius, which is power of the people. And she said to me, she feels like Pluto's got her by the ankles and is shaking her and saying, let go, let go.
yeah,
So
yeah.
I think a lot of people can relate to that.
Yeah, and of course, yeah, absolutely. And this is that time. This is definitely that time. We're in the pipe. We're in the I think the crucible of change, aren't we? Had the pleasure of seeing Pam Gregory talking at the weekend in Romsey, and she finished the day with an absolute blast of a half-hour presentation on her super sleuth work cosmically in the last week. And these weeks we're in now, it's the end of March, the running into April. There are so many unprecedented alignments of energy. There are previous precedents where massive shifts in our history, or whatever we're told is our history, has happened. And we're in a massive shakedown of all kinds of external systems, and of course falling over. And what we're going to see collapsing in the external world, we'll find how much people are using the external world as a prop to assist who they think they are, who they believe they
Yes.
are, and their comfort or their security or whatever else is represented by, say, banks or health and well-being facilities starting to crumble. And if we then go inside, what have we got to support ourselves when the external world is crumbling? And this is why community becomes so important, because
Yes.
it's what we've got inside ourselves, but being able to vibe with the same tribe, or be able
Absolutely.
to stay in connection with others who are on the same page, we can actually co-support and co-create together some amazing things. And then we can have a great time doing that. And then the people that are still floundering will go, wow, how come they're having such a great time and we're not?
Yeah.
And you go,
Love
well, yeah,
it.
there you go. Here you go. We'll give you a hand up if
Love
you
it.
want to come to
Yeah.
this kind
Beautiful.
of vibe and this level. And that's the frequency and the vibration increasing all the time. But this is a very dangerous time to be an unaware empath. And just going back to your people pleasing thing, and
Yeah.
I'm highly empathic as well, that this is one of the underlying themes of a people pleaser, is that they're feeling a pain in somebody else and they want to try and assist them to heal it.
Yes.
And if you're
Yes.
walking around now with all the mix of emotions, and especially if these things start to collapse in the external world, there's going to be big waves of energy coming out, which is insecurity, fear, uncertainty, doubt,
Yes.
anxiety. And if we are of that, disposition, it would be advisable for us to have good strategies to manage ourselves.
I think that's a really important point, because I've seen a lot of comments on social media about empaths and how to deal with the current energies in collective consciousness, and what all that's going on. And I think that's a really important point. And I think a lot of it like relates to self-responsibility, and this idea of we can't save the world. We're not, because that's, as soon as we have that motive, it's kind of external. We can only save ourselves. But if each of us does that and steps up in that self-responsibility, then and we start to form communities from that self-empowered place, health and self-empowered, that's what makes the shift. It's that be the change you want to see in the world kind of idea. I'd love to talk with you a bit about that if there's anything else you want to add to that, but also all the wonderful work that you're doing around heart-based, moving into heart-based economies, your work with the PHA, because I know you're a key person that's helping with the setup of hubs and making sure that the hubs are staying on track, staying out of fear, and building in love, and the influence that has when building a community, if we're staying in love. Just love to hear what you have to talk about.
Yeah, I mean, sure. I mean, this is the future. We've been, the attempts to separate us and compartmentalize us have failed miserably, because we've found ways, the human spirit, I say the human, men and women, human is another one of those words which Hugh is to cut down in the Bible. Not that I'm a big religious person or Bible basher, but to hew is to cut something down. So human is a cut down version of a man. So I tend to talk about men and women rather than humanitarian is kind of, a human is a sea monster in Ballantyne's 1948 law dictionary. So lower than a beast. So we some of our terms, again, there's some interesting wording here. But as we start to move into this higher levels of awakening and comprehension within us, and our insights and our pathways start to get clearer to perhaps whatever you call it, whether it's a divine connection or connection to your higher self, or the universe or source, whatever your representation is, what's happening is this bandwidth that maybe is like a finger's wide, previously, is starting to get wider. So we've got more and more connection to this much broader, bigger, richer world of energy and cosmology and higher self connections. And as that sort of expands as the bandwidth, we start to get more information, more awareness, and I'm calling it conscious knowing awareness of who we are, what we're here to do, and how we can, express that and create, what we're here to do in community, common unity with others. So part of this pathway is leaving behind the ego states and getting into a unity, a common unity, and a unified field of community endeavor, let's say, for want of a better term. So as communities start to evolve, so the frequency and vibration within them will, and it seems very clear that there'll be less room for fear, uncertainty, and doubt, and it'll be more about love, passion, common interests, and the desire to co-create from that power, insight, intuition, and that broader sense of who we are and what we're here to do in the world. This is life purpose, life callings driven creation. And those are the models that I think are going to be very important for communities to embrace, and groups to form around that common connection within the heart area and what our gut's telling us, rather than what we think is going on.
And that's beautiful, because that's very Aquarian, isn't it, in its outlook? The Aquarian energy is all about the unique contribution of the individual and holding that in a circle. So there's no hierarchy. You all have something to contribute. And it's really about honoring what the individual has to, not trying to make everyone doing what you're wanting to do or whatever. It's about honoring that diversity and coming together in that diversity, because that's a lot of what's been lost as well, as the diversity, and certainly it's kind of reclaiming a lot of that within ourselves and in our world.
Absolutely. And of course, this translates into the energy and how the energies flow in and around the community, and our people adding to the positive upward spiral of the community energies, or when fear, uncertainty, doubt, and all of those things come in. And I see some community groups that have still got elements of fear mongering or fear in them. This is a declining energy system that will not work where we're going in the future. So it's being able to rise above our fears, or like that, the book, feel the fear and do it anyway.
Yes.
We're not saying it's an absence of fear, because we can still all feel fearful about certain things in our lives, but are we choosing to let that dominate and control us and create territories and agendas and I am right, you are wrong things, which is, of course, then moving into ego, who we think we're supposed to be rather than who we really are, and actually just transcend and move beyond that into just co-creating together. And this is the beauty of this idea of the heart-based economy. And I have to give that credit, that I'm working with a wonderful guy, Matt Bell, and we've been working for the last probably 9 months now on new models of community, the community hub model. And we're seeing Matt's a time traveler, amongst many things. He's got connections with Star Family, and he's teaching people to do Star teaching protocols and that sort of thing to connect with Star Family. And you'd be surprised what stars in the sky actually are if you start thinking about them as luminous beings instead of stars billions of miles away.
I'm hoping to have Matt actually. I'm hoping to have him on the podcast. I haven't reached out to him yet, but he's on my radar. I think he'd be a fabulous person for the podcast. So
it's fine. Well, he really is. It's fascinating. It's like working with an encyclopedia of Star Family and cosmic and the history and all sorts of true history. So anyway, we've developed this. We've put all of this work together. Been seeing what's been happening in community assemblies. Some of those have been going very well. Some of them have been deteriorating as an energy system. And it's prompted us to do certain presentations and content. We've now wrapped that together in something we're calling positive living communities.
Beautiful.
And so we're going to positivelivingcommunities.com website just happened to be available. Like, wow, cool. So all of that is going to be assisting groups that want to get active in their communities to create and build hubs, whether health hubs or lawful hubs or learning hubs or enterprise hubs with new rules of business in the 5D, and what does that look like, but still have a trading basis between people, creating local economies and ecosystems of products and services and contributions. They're all based on love and the people's passion and energies doing what they love to do. And this is the heart-based economy in simple terms, basically running where people do what they love to do. They create things that are a benefit for not only themselves, but the communities they're a part of. And then there's a reciprocal trading of everybody doing that with different, some people love growing food. I'm just about looking after one plant here, and I put water in it when it goes droopy.
Well,
unfortunately,
it's been interesting that you brought this up, Paul, because our personal journey, we moved to Portugal, and what happens here is we moved here to be self-sufficient. And actually, my husband, he's a gardener. He manages, so he loves to garden. So that's handy. I don't have to. I can hand that over. But it's really interesting because what happens is that we go through this process when you go self-sufficient of kind of reinventing the wheel, where you have to sort of, like, we've had to figure out about solar panels, about building all kinds of stuff. And actually, if we can find a way where we're trading and people are just doing what they love to do, that's the way forward.
That is the heart-based economy in a nutshell. You just do what you love to do, and your basic needs are met. You're in a community of working with other people. And this is how community projects can form, is who's passionate about X. We know the community needs some help in this area. Maybe there's a health hub that's required. Who's passionate about holistic healing, and who's got traditional healing, like fixing broken bones and things. And can we actually come together and offer an integrated offering of products and services that will assist? And then you link with the growing hubs and say, well, what are we growing that could form the medicines, the plant-based medicines that we know the life cycle of? We know they were grown in that field over there, and we can use those to create medicines that are more in balance with our body and our, our biosystems, instead of relying on man-made pharmaceutical products that bloody, have so many side effects and disruptions to our natural states of being. So there's an energy flow right there, going from the food that we're growing into the medicines that we're having. There's a business, so there's an energy flow into the enterprise, hub type idea of stimulating businesses on new ideas. There's a learning and a self-empowered learning model, so that the community can operate together in a consistent way and do some positive living practices from unity consciousness. This is the model we believe, and Matt's been to the future and seen it, so we've got kind of a bit of a heads up from some of that, which is great. But I mean, some people go, oh my God, you've been smoking, Paul. But it's just like, this is all part of the future, where these things are just becoming available and apparent.
And you can see it happening. I went to this wonderful, I spoke at this wonderful event a couple of months ago, and it was called Revillage Your Life. And it was all different communities that were looking from this perspective. And I went to speak about the People's Health Alliance, which, although it's international, it is based on the local hub, concept, which was what it's all about, how we can come together.
We were talking about the Azores before, and I know you're Portugal, but I heard at the weekend from Ray Savage about a concept that's actually started in the Azores. I think they called it frequency villages.
Okay.
But the idea is that they're going to build 144 of these frequency villages in different places around the world. And there's one on one of the islands. I think it's San Miguel in the Azores, and they've started building it. And they've just got apparently a lot of money, like 26 million, I was told, to actually fund these projects. So we know that if communities have really leading edge projects, and we can join the dots and connect with wealthy entrepreneurs that are fully awake and altruistic in their outlooks, there's a really good funding model that can happen immediately for some of these things. And as we get into the quantum financial system, of course, if we've got love in our hearts and we've got honorable and pure intentions, then we'll get all the money we need to make that happen. Our energy signatures will be read by this.
It's the abundance, isn't it? It's that holding the vibration of abundance. It's like, that's the thing. I mean, Mother Earth is abundant, and that's the vibration, and we've been brought up in this scarcity model,
totally
brought into it,
Yeah, totally. Well, just that example, I think about a year ago when the Vatican tunnels were cleared out, and I heard that there was $384 quadrillion worth of gold, silver, artifacts, and if that was distributed around the world, just that, miles and miles of tunnels, they said, but that was distributed. Every man, woman, boy, girl, and newborn baby would have $4 million in their bank account. I mean, it's not that the money is not there, it's just been hoarded, taken away, and we've been put into a little slavery scarcity system, which is actually breaking down now. This is incredible times.
You see it. I mean, moving to somewhere like Portugal, you really see it, because the Portuguese people, they're kind of quite old-fashioned in the sense that they never really moved away. Certainly in the area I am, of kind of having their own piece of land and working their own piece of land. So you see orange trees just full, loaded with oranges, and they just sat there. There's just an abundance, and you see it in Portugal more than perhaps in other countries,
Yeah. So. Well, there's lots of examples of really amazing things happening in communities besides the PHA, and you mentioned them earlier. I do a fortnightly coaching and mentoring Zoom call with Matt, actually, for any PHA hub builder around the world that actually is going through the process of with a group of people or the people involved to build a hub. And we kind of give guidance and facilitate solutions on the calls to assist hub builders to take the next step, to vision what they need to do, to get organized, maybe get into the community to find out what the needs are, and then they can move into delivering some benefits, and then refining and then expanding what they're doing.
That's
And
fabulous.
everyone's sharing where they're at. And we've got some groups that are further ahead than others, so they get to share insights as well. So we have this really wonderful hour of sharing that, and that's in effect what I mean. The groundswell of not just opinion but desire to create something different is so massive
It's
now.
incredible.
PHA, 23 countries around the world, and
I think maybe even interest in 31, it's
yeah,
it really has taken off, and it's fabulous, and that's what happens when we're in the heart energy field. There's a flow and an expansion, it's really
yeah.
beautiful.
And of course, this is where when we get in the I'm ex-corporate world, but people talk about the full potential of an organization, of a company being realized. And many people have done research and identifying that, there's probably about an 80% gap in people's potential to contribute and actually being able to contribute in the environment they're in a business today, in a 3D business. So what we're looking at in the future is where people are actually able to fully comprehend and then contribute to the wholeness of
Yes,
the society model, holistic society and communities, and from the wholeness of their hearts
beautiful.
and
Yeah.
everything they have. So we're liberating that like trapped potential in the new models, which is
It's
all energetic again.
It's incredible. It's incredible, and you can just really feel the resonance of people that are coming from that place and the vibration. It's really fabulous, and certainly the People's Health Alliance, the center of it is definitely coming from that place.
Yeah.
It's
And also with the People's Food and Farming Alliance, because Catherine McBean
yes,
is co-founder of both of those. So we're there's a whole approach to not only do it yourself growing produce in your back garden and assisting people to do that who may not have done that before, then nurturing community projects and doing different approaches there, and then actually talking to the big farmers in the area that are growing crops for a global food chain supply and actually switching their supply to a more sustainable, actually a better economics
yes,
for a local or regional supply to their local customers and regional customers. So we're taking the global
fabulous.
food chain out.
Well, that's the way, and we've certainly here in Portugal, we've got, we're all working towards becoming self-sufficient, but we also have a buying group as well, so that we're making that direct connection and trying to, rely less and less on the supermarkets, etc.
Yeah.
Just backtracking a little bit, Paul, can you let people know how they can access the hub meeting that you do?
Yeah, I think Amanda from the PHA puts out the Zoom call. I think there's a regular Tuesday evening 8 o'clock drop-in call, which happens every week, and then it's every other week we have the coaching and mentoring call. So it's a fortnightly basis, and the details come out of the Amanda and the PHA. I think it's also the shown on the website.
Yeah, so what I'll do is I'll put the website underneath as well, and there's a section that's called, you can subscribe to the newsletter, but there's also a section that says Hub Life, I believe, and
That's I think where it is. Yeah,
I think
I
that's
think it's
where
Hub
you
Life.
can find out about, perhaps that. So
Yeah.
that's fabulous. So I'm just aware of the time. I'd love to chat. It's going really quickly, but I'd just like to round it up. I understand you've got a workshop coming up. Can you tell us a little bit about your workshop?
Yeah. I'd done a couple of workshops before, which was about liberating your next level, and it was really just reconnecting with the 5D elements, the divine power and authority you've got within you, and explaining, I suppose, a couple of different concepts about how to look at things very simply, and then experiencing them with some group decree processes and guided meditations and so on to really activate and connect with those things within you. So it's not just talk about these theories, it's then bring it out in your, so you're walking away with some new activated parts of you
Fabulous.
from the workshop. But I met a lady called Sarah Williams only a few weeks ago, and we had our first conversation on Zoom, and it was like we were just like soul family.
It's
And it was
definitely
the
soul
things she just
family for
right, yeah,
me.
it's so funny. And so we're doing a joint workshop on the 6th of May in the Hamble area, which is just around Southampton, and it's called Raise Your Vibes. And basically it's a little bit of what I do, and then it's some of Sarah's really cool experiences about immaculate self-care, how to look after yourself, your energy systems, and your well-being in some holistic ways. We're getting some contributors like stall holders and 5D healing products there, so crystals, creams, but we're also doing some community building at the end, where you bring a drum. We might do a bit of drumming session, there might be some singing. There's a sound bath experience. We might be doing some yoga in the day, a little bit of in situ yoga. So it's really it's very exciting, and Sarah and I are very, very inspired by
That sounds
by what
incredible. When is that, Paul?
that's the Saturday, the 6th of May.
Okay.
It's going to be a 9 till 5, 9 till maybe 6 if people want to stay for the community stuff. And yeah, it's going to be an awesome day. So we're doing a lot of interactive stuff, but stepping into our I am powers. We are going to be doing some group decrees and some guided meditations again. And yeah, it's going to be a good mix of feminine and masculine energies as well, with Sarah and I
It sounds
um,
fabulous. I'm
presenting.
coming to the UK on the 8th of May. I'm sorry, I've just missed it by a couple of days.
Ah,
And
well,
you'll never believe where my family's from, Paul, just on a personal note.
go on then. Where?
Chilworth.
What?
Chilworth.
Oh my goodness
I
me! Yeah,
know, just
that's
down the
right.
road from you.
Down the road. Yeah.
It's a
Well,
crazily small world, isn't
it
it?
is. It is. Yeah. Well, look. I mean, we're going to be doing some more. I think we're just wanting to do this one. I know I want to do some more all around the UK, because the idea is to get, like, this is why we're looking at getting 50 people or more together. I mean, this place has got 150 capacity, which is great. But we could get 50 people or more from an area, and we start to raise the vibration of those 50 or 80 people, and we can
Absolutely.
start to then co-create. That group can start to co-create from a different level
Yeah.
of awareness and being and activations within them. And then the things that myself and Matt are doing with the positive living communities can provide some stepping stones and guidance. So if you want to build a health hub, we're still continuing to work. In fact, we're going to be working with the PHA and the PFFA on this anyway. But if you want to set up a lawful hub, to provide natural law or equity law or common law advice in an area as part of a community, then we're going to be assisting people to do that. If you want to set up an enterprise hub and start looking at what the heart-based economy practices, principles, how you collaborate with like-minded and like-hearted people, there's all that we can do. There's lots of things
There's
we
so
can
much
do.
going on. It's
Yeah,
really, really incredible work. And I'm doing something similar myself. I'm running a group, Creating New Earth, that's very similar. But
yeah,
it's an online group. So it's my sense is that we're anchoring light
yeah.
codes in different locations around the world when we do the work. But very
Totally. And I think
similar.
there's online stuff is great to scale. And a
Yeah.
lot of this stuff is going to be great for people who can't or not in your local area, or even in the UK. But
Yes,
this is a global
it
phenomenon.
really is.
People are really hungry. And there is a portion of the population I'm very aware of that have gone to community assemblies. They started off thinking they were really great. And then they've continued to go, but there's been various fear creeping into the equations. And some people have just said, you know what, I'm not going. If I want some fear or fear
That's the
mongering,
thing.
I could turn my TV on or just pick up a newspaper. I'm not going to
It's
spend a Saturday morning and then sort of, there's going to be no food on the shelves, or, whatever the
sure.
message is.
Yeah.
People don't want that. So they've gone away from that model. And
Yes.
what we see is finding a way to draw people back to something that is a bit more 5D anyway, because frankly, community assemblies feels a bit 3D. I mean, it's brilliant to get people together. You got stand in the park groups, you got community action groups.
There's so
To
much.
get people into a new model of community building that's all about holistic, heart-based and unity consciousness. There's a lot to do here, and it's very exciting.
So talking about unity consciousness, I'd just like to finish. Paul and I had a little brief chat before, and we happened to end up talking about the Azores and dolphins. And I said to Paul, you know what, I think this has come up for a reason, and I'm feeling this is to come in. And my feeling it's about the love, the unity consciousness, the vibration that's held in, in the dolphin community, as it were. I just wondered whether you would like to just say a few words just to finish with that.
Sure. Okay. Well, we were talking a little bit before. I've been very blessed to be able to lead groups who are going dolphin swimming and whale watching in the open water, in the wild. And the Azores was one of those places, and Bimini in the Bahamas near Florida was another place. But the Azores was an experience. It's going back like 10, 15 years, 20, maybe 20 years ago. But that was my busman's holiday. In the summer, I would like go for 3 weeks over there and assist like 3 different groups as a lead to the group. And what happened when you're on a boat, you're in this open water, you're in an incredible raw environment in the Azores, you're in the middle Atlantic, so it's all natural stuff, all the food's grown there with the minerals in the soil from the volcanic stuff, and you're in this energy, and then you go out and you start being dropped off in a pair, the boat backs away, and you're in the water waiting for a pod of 100 dolphins to come past you, and they're coming swimming around you, below you, and literally I'm getting goosebumps talking about it.
I'm feeling a bit emotional, Paul, already.
Yeah, and I am feeling a little teary myself, because people come out of the boat having had that experience in a state of pure bliss. I've experienced it myself. I'm so fortunate and lucky to have experienced it many, many times. But I've also had the privilege of assisting other people to have that experience, to come out and there's tears of joy. There's just the hearts have been just opened. Oh. And I do have a theory that when dolphins sonar you, they're actually rebalancing your chakras. They're doing some energy work with you. And, some people will say that dolphins and whales are actually alien life forms that were brought here to stabilize the planet during difficult times. And their migration paths are actually reinforcing, just by their passing, the energy lines and the meridians of the earth through the ocean lines.
Yeah.
So, but this state of bliss and the joy that is just coming from people, and it lasts the whole holiday. It builds. If they've gone in the water again, and then they take that away, and there's a connection with the dolphins, and what that means, that pretty much everybody, it's never forgotten, it's never lost, because you've had this incredible experience. And that is where we are going.
Yeah. As
we get into the higher levels of frequency, it's just going to be a joy to wake up in the morning. It's going to be a joy to walk out the door, to see some friends, and you can be, hi, how are you doing? And it's not one of these kind of utopian models. This is real. This is going to be real.
And we can build on it and call it in with our intention as well. We can start to call that in, because it is already there. It's not, in many ways it is already there. We just have to set our, we have to tune into that radio channel.
Well, Sarah, I couldn't agree with you more. This is, myself and Matt talk about this all the time. It's here. People are trading in the heart-based economy now. People are doing things from a higher sense of self, a higher calling. That explains the PHA right there.
Absolutely.
It's happening all around the world. People, food and farming, stand in the park groups, they're coming together because they're dissatisfied with the current situation. I mean, some people may not know what they want, I don't know what I want, but I do know I don't want what I've got, that kind of thing. But we're rising up above that core baseline narrative that's just running out of steam day by day now. So
I could talk to you for hours, Paul. It's been an absolute delight. Thank you so much. I've really loved talking with you, and I'm sure our viewers will have really enjoyed it also.
Well, I hope so.
Do you have any last comments before we close?
Yeah, it's all about focus. What you focus on, you believe, and what you believe, you create in your life. So what are you focusing on? Because whatever you focus on can either be an expansion path and an expanding belief, or a limiting belief. But it starts with your focus. So getting internally focused as opposed to externally focused, and just going within to find the answers has never been a better, more powerful time to do that. So
thank
lots
you
of
so
love.
much. And thank you everyone for listening. Do hit subscribe if you've enjoyed this podcast. Thanks so much, and bye for now.
Thanks.